We are back with the third segment of Jason Mackey's weekly appearance on the Post-Gazette Sports YouTube channels. This is our Pirates YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about Jason's interview with Bob Nutting following the Derek Shelton firing last week. Jason, you spoke to him and he said he's not selling the team in part because he believes he can affect economic reform in Major League Baseball. Do you put any stock in that whatsoever? Why would anyone listen to Bob Nutting about economic imbalance? Is there anyone in baseball who doesn't see him as a bad actor at this point? And I mean, if the big market owners are going to listen to anyone about the imbalance, wouldn't it be the teams that are trying, like Cleveland and Tampa Bay?
Yeah. Yes. And yes. I don't know how many questions are in there, but I agree with your points. What's Bob going to say? Number one, it's also a question on the mind of fans. So, I mean, I have to ask it. Here's what I hope, Adam, and I have a column about this going for Sunday, that there are ways to create some sort of economic reform. Now, I think what Bob would want isn't going to fly. And I think when he says something like that, I think fans dismiss it. One, because of the Pirates' activity. And two, the no vote that he cast, or I guess I should say the yes vote. He wasn't a dissenting vote in the last CBA. And so if you want to advocate for change, that would be one. And I don't think we're going to get significant change. But anyway, to the Sunday column, like what you need to do is change things for teams like the Pirates, incentivize the revenue sharing funds, or take them away if teams aren't competitive. If you don't have a winning percentage at a certain level for a certain period of time, like you can certainly play around with this stuff. But yeah, the perception of Bob around the sport is that they're hoarding revenue sharing funds. And I'm not going to, create a dust up over the idea of their finances. I know there was one story that said one thing, another story that said another thing. My truthful opinion is that we don't know. We don't have a look in their books, or I don't have a look into their books, and most people don't. And so what I want to see is, I guess I should say, small market teams that are required to do certain things with their money. If you're the Cleveland Guardians, if you're the Tampa Bay Rays, and you want to spend on processes because you think that makes you look smart and you have success with that, great. Godspeed. Do your thing. Run your team the way you see fit. If you're not doing that and you're not having success, then I want to see those teams forced to spend that money or show some sort of proof of concept. And I don't know. I guess that's a long-winded way of saying this is a greater discussion. I don't think that Bob Nutting is going to change Major League Baseball's financial economic structure or whatever. I wish Major League Baseball would change. I think it needs to. But it's going to remain a sore spot the same way it was probably after that interview for people.
Well, and I just the problem I have with this whole conversation, Jason, is we're going to talk about punishing the Mets and the Yankees and the Dodgers for trying to win. And spending a ton of money, and often it goes to waste for some reason or another. Yeah. But those teams at the top of the food chain are punishing
them. You mean like with the CBT threshold?
Right, something like that. When there are owners like Bob Nutting who exist, I think that the easiest reform to this that is not a salary cap is attaching some level of minimum commitment that otherwise MLB will force the sale. And they have the economic data, right? They're not going to show it to you and me, but the league knows what the Pirates are making and not making, and are spending and not spending. Should there not be some provision where, if the league determines that you're not doing your best, making your best attempt to win, that the league can force a sale of the team to avoid a situation like we're in now, where Bob Nutting can say he's never going to sell the team, and that's kind of where the conversation seems to end for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I will speak to the, how do I say this? The, political views of Major League Baseball, the economic climate, like how they view what people should be allowed to do with their money. I don't think they're a society that really wants to regulate who spends what, where. So you might run into some roadblocks there. I mean, I agree with you, Adam. I agree with you that concept, like you should have to be trying to win. I think the gray area that would create, and if we just speak in real terms with the Pirates, like what if they're spending on analytics and development and international, all this stuff, like in good faith, like they're actually spending that money. Major League Baseball's looking at it. It's not as much as we think. They're actually redistributing this money, and they're making horrible decisions. What do you do then? Like, do you force them to sell the team for being dumb? Can you do that? I don't know. And I don't think that's something Major League Baseball would do. Maybe you penalize them. That's why I get kind of tripped up on this stuff, because I don't know what all Major League Baseball can do. I don't think it can force itself for making bad decisions. I guess I'd say that.
I still hang on that report from Bob Nightingale in the middle of the week.
It wasn't a report. It was a nugget tucked deep into a notebook.
Well, but he said it was confirmed by several owners. It was information from the players' union that, quote unquote, was confirmed by several owners that the Pirates are one of the most profitable teams in baseball. Whether it's true or not, maybe, I guess you can.
You can see I'm taking issue with that. Yeah.
Yes, I can see you're taking issue with it. But regardless of the extent to which you believe that claim, let's just say, for the sake of argument, they are one of the most profitable teams. Isn't that the type of thing MLB would know? And they could say, you're one of the most profitable teams, which means you're not putting the money back into the system. You're keeping it for yourself. We know that you are. Behind the scenes, that just seems like something that kind of goes against what you're saying of, like, if they are investing, then they wouldn't be profitable. They'd be putting it back into the team.
Yeah. The only problem with that is the Major League Baseball Players Association doesn't have any access to the Pirates' books. The same way Steve Cohen doesn't have access to the Pirates' books, or, whatever Steinbrenner's running the Yankees or whatever. Like, no, Major League Baseball does. And so what you're speaking on there is the general feeling that the Pirates are taking money, which, it exists, right? Like, you have a grievance filed by the MLBPA. Certainly, I'm not unaware of the perception. But, like, if me personally, as a former reporter, current columnist, newspaper person, whatever, dude, if I've got that confirmed, if I have that like owners and all these other people have seen the Pirates books and they know that they're stealing money, am I going to bury that halfway down a notebook? Nope. I'm going to put a headline on that, because that's big news. So it's not a report. And that's why I'm kind of bristling, because a lot of fans take that and say that, there's some sort of confirmed thing. No, I mean, that's a suspicion, and that's fine. Like, they've given reason to be skeptical because of their payroll. That's perfectly fair. And you want to be upset about how they do their business, you should. I don't think it's that. And I think if Major League Baseball knew that the Pirates were just hoarding money, and again, all of their documents, they're audited by a third-party service. So they would see that Bob Nutting is just hoarding cash, and every year he's taking in all of this money that he's not spending back to like, why wouldn't they at some point step in? I'm not saying that like they're spending everything that they should or spending it how they should. I disagree with how they spend a lot of their money. But if it was, making money hand over fist, the way Nightingale seems to allege, I can't imagine MLB would allow that to continue.
Well, I guess we will wait and see how that plays out over the next couple of months here with the Pirates. Jason, I wanted to build on a point you made in your column, which was that Bob Nutting was talking a lot about making the team better in 2025. But you're pointing to the obvious deficiencies that this franchise has beyond him. And I think that's something I've said on the show a couple of times, is that I think Bob Nutting is the reason the Pirates aren't good. But I think the reason they're dreadful is the decisions they've made at lower levels with the development and things like that between Ben Cherington and Derek Shelton. Why does he not seem more focused on that? And why did it stop at Shelton in your mind?
Yeah, I don't know. It shouldn't have. I'm confused by it. I will say this, from talking to Bob, I think there's a priority placed on this season, which sounds good. Like year 2 of Paul Skeens, you should prioritize this season. The only problem is it's incongruent with their activities this offseason. I don't think a lot of people would be upset if the Pirates said, hey, look, this is our chance. Like, we're going to push some chips to the middle of the table. This matters to us, and go sign a real first baseman or go add to the team. Great. It's what everybody's out here to see them do. But now all of a sudden, Nutting is attaching this priority to 2025. And so I asked him in that interview, people will read, why Derek and not Ben and Travis Williams. And he doesn't think that will, what did he say? That'll get them off track, something like that. And that it's not what helps them most in 2025. Okay. But what validity? And I guess I could have followed up a third time. I don't know. time is limited in these things too. Like what validity do you have for keeping the general manager? A lot of the reasons that they're not very good right now are roster decisions that Ben has made. It's not, yes, like you have to fire Derek Shelton. I don't have any issue with that, whatever. But the roster he's been forced to manage is not good enough. They haven't made good trades. They haven't made good free agent signings. The things that Ben Cherington has brought in here to fix player development, player acquisition, all this stuff, like it has not happened. And so if you're accountable together, the way that Cherington said, why are you not accountable together here? And I don't understand why they didn't make more aggressive moves here. I understand it wouldn't immediately affect the on-field product, but you're basically signaling to your fans that what has happened is good enough, and it hasn't been.
Jason, it's offensively, this is worse than 2019.
It actually is.
By a country, it's not even close. It's and that's, I think, the biggest indictment is it'd be one thing if you felt like they were someone, but they're not. There were 4 guys in the lineup hitting under 200 last night.
Yep.
And that's unacceptable in year 6 of a rebuild. So let me ask you this: do you think they're just letting Ben Cherington handle the draft because we're very late in that process, and that maybe there will be some movement after that point?
I do. Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of staying power with Cherington. I think it's more logistical than anything that, there's not a great chance of him being here. Now, if they somehow, Adam, figure this out and go on some tear from now until the end of the season, that's going to change. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just, affording the possibility. But as we sit here right now, I don't see how Cherington is back here. I think it's more logistical. And I don't understand allowing him to continue the draft. I've said this too. Bob Nutting is going to be accountable for that. People are going to look at him. If this draft stinks, they're going to say, well, why did you wait until after the year to fire the general manager? You let him run one final draft before you get out of there? You and I know that Ben Cherington isn't, it's not like Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin in the NFL. It's different. He's not picking the exact player. There's an entire process and team of people for that. I just don't understand it. So anyway, back to the original point, I don't expect Cherington to be here beyond this year unless something really changes.
Jason, we are going to talk about more on-field topics on the other side of this break. Looking forward to getting your thoughts on that. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsor.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenewalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years experience, Greenewalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense. From rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenewalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenewalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenewaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
We are back on our weekly chat with Jason Mackey here on the Pirates YouTube channel from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Jason, one thing that Bob Nutting brought up in your interview with him that I keep seeing brought up by everyone involved with this management group in terms of the on-field results is, we've had a ton of injuries this season. And that is somewhat true. But it seems principally the guy they're referring to is Spencer Horwitz, who just to this point in his MLB career looks like a guy to me. He's not really proven that he's like this huge middle of the lineup threat that they are missing. That's A. And B, injuries happen. Attrition happens. That's a 162-game season. If your whole plan is predicated on none of your relevant players getting hurt, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to work out, Jason.
Right. Yeah, I don't like that, Adam. I know the narrative that you're saying. And you know what else I don't like? The expected talk. I understand expected stats. I don't have any problem using those as a way to inform some sort of decision making. But explaining to your fans that things aren't the way they should be because of expected stats, we're performing below expected, that doesn't make anybody feel better. And it's not like they have a bunch of 5-time All-Stars on the bench because they're injured. This is a lineup, this is a roster, I should say, in year 6 of a rebuild that's not nearly deep enough. And also, this goes to a point that we talked about earlier and we've talked about repeatedly, but you would have liked to have seen them do more this offseason to give themselves some depth. And the moves they made were not good enough. Case in point right now is the situation with Tommy Pham. He's barely playing. because he was another poor offseason acquisition, in the same vein as Rowdy Tellez, Michael A. Taylor, Yasmani Grandal et al., Yoshi Satsugo. There's been a whole bunch of them. And they're instead prioritizing Alexander Canario, a recent waiver claim, the same as Emmanuel Valdez. Like, was that your plan? Was that your plan to just pick up like random waiver claim guy and play him? Because I don't think it was. And yeah, like Spencer Horwitz was the plan. I understand that, and he's injured, but you should be able to backfill with more than Emmanuel Valdez and Alexander Canario in 2 premium positions in your roster in year 6 of a rebuild. Like, that tells me you do not have enough organizational depth on the offensive side. So I think we're saying the same thing. I might be saying in a convoluted way, but it is just, it's not deep enough. It's not good enough. They counted on too many, Henry Davis to figure it out, Jack Sawinski to figure it out, Jared Triolo to figure it out, whatever. And like basically none of them have figured it out. So the subtle, small injuries they have had have just been too much. They've hurt them.
Jason, you mentioned the expected stats thing. It reminds me a lot of the 10,000 simulations that Neil Huntington, that comment he made for the regime. I think that's part of why these guys have lasted as long as they have. So they're a lot more artful than Neil was or Frank Coonley was about these things that they believe that are obviously hocus pocus on some level. I guess the question I had for you on the expected stats is what are they missing? If Bryan Reynolds is expected to do this and he's doing this, what's the reason for the gulf between those two outcomes?
Yeah, okay, let me take that a step further. And can you find a way to navigate the gulf? Do you have the coaching and the infrastructure and the people in place to, if you're over here and you don't want to be over here, how do you get to over here? Can you do that? And I don't think this group can do that. The reasons for the struggles are going to be all over the place, right? Like, Bryan Reynolds just a wreck right now. I don't know where to even start with Reynolds, but Key Brian Hayes has been below expected. He's been one of those guys. O'Neal Cruz has been one of the few guys who have really kind of founded and developed into an offensive threat, but a lot of their team has been below what they've projected them to be. I go to a couple places with that. One, what makes your projections right? Like, every team has their own projections. Every team runs their own metrics. Like, you might have thought it was going to be a certain way. And to your point, Adam, like, what's causing that? And so I don't think there's one blanket answer for all of that. But what I do know is this has happened a lot. This has happened every year of this regime's time in Pittsburgh, where I think people are tired of hearing about projections, expected, what our numbers say or whatever. And I think the owner's tired of hearing about this too. I think the owner's constantly been told things are going to get better. Things are going to turn around. Things are going to be this. Things are going to be that. And it's been long enough. Like, I hate this phrase, but like when the rubber hits the road, that's kind of where we're at right now. It's time to either produce or this is just a failure. And I think the majority of people right now will say this is a failure. I don't think there's a huge drastic change coming, but I think that's where the owner's looking at this and saying, man, like, year 6 of a rebuild, we should be a lot better than this.
When you and I sat down to do our season predictions, I think the big difference between you and me was I thought if there was positive regression with the offense, it still wasn't going to be enough to make this team very good. And we've seen it go in the opposite direction. It's been negative regression. And that's just, unacceptable at this stage of this. So, I agree with you there, Jason. I want to talk a little bit about Bubba Chandler. What's the holdup there in your mind? When do you expect to see him here? I know a lot of people that might be the only real highlight left of the season, Jason, is seeing what this guy can do.
I don't know what we're waiting for, Adam. I look at this the same way I'm looking at Cherington and Shelton. What does this kid need to prove? Maybe a spot in the rotation, but I wasn't all that impressed with Bailey Falter the last time out. Karma Majinski may have found some traction the last time, but I don't know how you keep him down here any longer. I mean, it's somebody your fan base wants to see. It's somebody who's earned this opportunity. It should be a meritocracy. You should have your best 5 pitchers on the field at all times. And Bubba Chandler right now is one of their best 5 pitchers. Now, I don't know what that means for Carmen Mlodzinski or Bailey Falter, and frankly, I don't care. If that means you strengthen your bullpen in some way, great. But you should have your best 5 pitchers in Pittsburgh. Bubba Chandler has shown that. He deserved the opportunity. I was fine with sending him down to start the season. But anything beyond that, especially with how he's pitched lately, man, I don't know what they're waiting for.
Anything else standing out to you, Jason, in terms of the on-field and where we're going from here?
I don't know where we're going from here. I hope it's somewhere better than where we've been. But no, nothing else standing out on field. I'm continually watching the situation with the GM, Adam. I don't feel like what they did with Cherington is a promise that he's going to be around for any stretch of time. You know, I know his house went on the market yesterday, and the Pirates are saying that was like a pre-planned move. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but I don't see how you can stay down this path. It's been long enough. It has not been good enough, and the tentacles of it, they're too many to keep this going.
Well, if there's one saving grace about this terrible start to the season, it's that they are so far from relevance that if they stay anywhere close to this far from relevance when you get to the trade deadline, there will be no justification for a Chris Archer type deal or a Matt Morris type deal. We saw at the end of those regimes that set the next regime, you know, the regimes that followed them back. So if you're a Pirates fan who's wanted to see Ben Cherington gone, that's the one silver lining I can see, is that he should not get anywhere close to being able to make a deal like that sets you back.
Adam, I mean, why would you even allow him near the trade deadline? The same
Right.
as the draft.
Yeah.
What have they done? They haven't done anything in the draft or around the trade deadline.
The draft I can see because it requires so much scouting, Jason, that if you can't bring a new GM in cold, and whoever you leave in place as the interim is probably going to make similar decisions that Cherington himself would have made. So I think that's kind of a no-win situation at this point. The right time to fire Ben Cherington was in the offseason to set up for this whole process. Now that you haven't done it, that's difficult for me. But no, I would not let him anywhere near the trade deadline.
So what? You would fire him after the draft, but before the trade deadline?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I
like the draft is such a process, and you're so close to the end.
You're telling me, and I know this, you know this, that he's not that intimately involved. Like, you're saying nothing's going to change if it's Steve Sanders or Kevin Graves, which is true. And, you know, it's not the NFL where it's Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin basically picking this player. Why would you not just remove him? If you're not going to allow him anywhere near the trade deadline, and things to this point would not be good enough, so you have to allow him to be a figurehead in the draft. But most people don't know that. Most people don't know that, like, the GM is not the person really pulling the strings in a Major League Baseball draft. So why would I allow him to do it?
I mean, just because I guess it would just be disruptive of the process, but you make a good point if he's not super involved. I mean, I guess what you're saying is that symbolically you need to move on from this guy regardless of anything else.
If you're going to do it by the trade deadline, which I agree with you, because the trade deadline activity for the Pirates has stunk, I don't know why I'd be adhered to it by the draft. Like, I could maybe be talked into the argument of keeping him throughout the regular season, and just we have to get to the offseason because we want somebody in charge of the team. I don't agree with that. I'd rather see Kevin Graves get a shot, or Steve Sanders, or whomever, until the end of the year, and then you hire somebody. That's fine. I don't think it's going to disrupt their draft process all that much if somebody else is in charge. They've been doing the same stuff. I think it's a bad look for Nutting and the Pirates to allow Cherington to take, like, if you do not have the confidence that he is your guy, which I don't think it's very strong, I don't understand why you would allow him to run a draft, even if he's not the one intimately involved.
Yeah, and then you get back to what we said at the start of, we intend to compete in 2025. I think they have to go something like 14 or 15 games over 500 from here just to get to 500 for the season, which is not going to be good enough. So just the notion that that's possible it seems so far from reality. But Jason, thanks for joining me this week. Everyone else, thanks for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. We'll be back next week. Jason, I think you also have something to tease for Saturday Conversations this week.
I do. It should be familiar to Pirates fans. Cole Tucker will be joining me. He's not playing anymore. He's starting his media career. I actually heard Cole. I was on Sirius XM MLB Network Radio. He sounded excellent. I texted him. I told him that, and we were going back and forth. And I said, hey, I want to get you on the podcast at some point. And he said, anytime. So, yeah, he's going to be joining me. He's just starting out, trying to figure out his spots and what he wants to do. But Cole Tucker, one of the all-time good guys. We'll talk about Pirates, his memories. I want to talk to him a little bit about. He's somebody who knows Donnie Kelly quite well. He'll give some insight into the Pirates' new manager and starting out in this media thing and how you do it. He's always been one of the more quotable, nicest players that I've ever covered. So it'll be a good chat.
Check that out on Saturday, folks, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.